Hi, everybody. I'm Pastor Joshua Serrano.
And I am Pastor Jeremy Serrano. Welcome to the Serrano Brothers podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Serrano Brothers podcast. I'm so glad that you're here with us. I'm Jeremy Serrano.
Joshua Serrano.
And we are twin brothers. We're pastors in the Bay Area, and we like to talk to each other. And so that's why we're here today. We have, Joshy, our Synod Assembly coming up in September.
Yep, in 3 months.
For those that don't know, a Synod Assembly is our denomination, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We are broken up in conferences, which is the smallest kind of, well, it's individual churches. Churches make up a conference. Conferences make up a synod. Synod makes up a region, and then all of the regions together are the ELCA. And our synods are getting together. They get together every year to do the business of the synod-wide church. And this year we are electing a bishop.
Yep. They do like to say that it's what do they say, like one church, three expressions? Is that kind of like the local, have you heard that before?
I've heard it, but I feel like it's one of those tagline things that I never remember what they are. And I guess it didn't catch on because you and I don't know what it is, right?
Well, no, I think you had it right. It's like individual churches, synods, and then church-wide, basically.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm just so focused on my parish that I have a hard time, kind of looking up to the wider church and what they're doing.
I think that's the case for a lot of pastors, and I think that's a growing edge for us,
right?
Because our wider denomination, they make policies and stuff that affect individual churches, and we are a witness to the world, and so it's important the things that we put out there, right? Not just on the individual level, but as a denominational level too. Which is why bishop selections are important, right?
How are you feeling about this bishop selection?
I feel like I'm ready for there to be a new bishop. One that's in place. I had originally thought that, oh man, we need some time before we get a new bishop to kind of process everything that had happened before. But then I took a sabbatical, right, which was amazing. And coming back, there's still a lot of complexity to the entire situation that happened before, and it's unresolved. But I feel like we got to get a new bishop in.
So what can we say about this situation before? So we elected a bishop, right?
Right.
There seems to be some impropriety that happened. Is that the right word we want to use?
Something happened.
Something happened.
Something happened. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that we can say impropriety, like, because that's like, but something happened, and they are no longer bishop. Right. Some people thinks that it's tied to the fact that the former bishop had removed a pastor in a way that was
improper,
right?
Racist.
Racist. Yeah.
Right.
And so some people feel that was tied to that. But we don't have all the information.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is no one has all the information, right? It feels like this is a big like there are many layers to this onion,
Mhm.
uh, complexity of trauma and maybe not the best decision making. Um, it just feels like there's a lot to it, and I actually get very skeptical of the people who feel like they have all the information. Um,
Right.
you know, uh, and want to act as if they know the entire truth of it all, because I'm I'm pretty sure they don't. um,
Let's stay on this topic for just one moment. And for me, when all of the kind of gossip and rumors and online conversations would happen, it was wild to me that there were people across the country who were making such sure statements and writing articles and like doing this stuff, and they were so far removed from it, but yet
no,
they had the loudest voice in what was actually happening in our local synod, while us as the pastors of the synod were weren't there with them. At least most of us weren't there with those people who
right,
were loud.
right.
um,
Uh, a lot of assumptions, a lot of, I think tribalism is a thing,
for sure.
I think people rally around their own, you know, and so if I think that's a big case that happens in churches as well. People are like pick a side, and so um and honestly um it feels tribal to me.
Did
And
you have anybody ever approach you and like, hey, you got to stick with the Hispanics on this?
no, no, but I do recall like I do recall somebody telling you like, oh, a real Latino would know blah blah blah,
Right.
right? And or
Called me
somebody who
La Malinche or something like that.
right, somebody kind of was like kind of equated you with La Malinche. And for those of you who don't know, La Malinche is a native woman in Mexico who's is uh is considered like a Benedict Arnold, somebody who betrayed their people um, to the powers that be, and so they kind of equated you with that,
Mhm.
um, and I mean it was ugly. It was ugly,
It was
and
really the worst of church. Like,
I think yeah, I agree. I I it still makes me sad because how do we come back from that,
right.
right? Um, how do we um, be church together after that, and
Mhm.
and heal and move forward for the sake of the gospel, you
Yeah.
know uh and and maybe there's not a coming back for some people. I don't know.
Yeah.
uh uh but I mean, I believe in the church. I believe in the power and the mission of God, and I think that there has to be grace and forgiveness and moving forward,
Indeed.
uh,
Indeed. I'm with you.
without taking anything away from the trauma that happened on various levels for pastors, for congregations, for the bishop's office. I mean, there's all kinds of layers to this that I don't even feel like I can talk about, like because I'd probably be getting some of it wrong,
Right.
and
And I don't want to mention any specific details just because
right.
I wasn't a part of the situation. I just kind of watched an explosion and camps form, and yeah.
Yeah, and I really felt like when that happened that like we were just posing the question, like, are you sure you got all the information,
Right.
like that, or that's not what we have heard directly from some people, um and and we were maligned for it, and so anyways, let's move on to
So let's move
talk.
to the bishop's election. Okay, so we
Sure,
got a
sure.
bishop's election. coming up. The first thing I want to talk about is the culture around bishop selections, because there is a culture around a bishop selection, right? There are people who campaign but don't really campaign. Have you had that happen to you?
I I've had um I've had people who I thought I knew were running for bishop who are extra nice, like to me,
Uh-huh.
and usually, they probably wouldn't talk to me all that much, and so that makes me question people's motives, and
Right.
maybe that's the cynical part of me, you know.
Uh, I
Uh,
don't think it is, because I feel like, 6 months, 7 months running up to any bishop selection, I start to hear from people that are on the ballot that I may not necessarily talk to regularly,
uh,
and they are very friendly and cordial, uh and this has happened with 100% of the people on the candidates. I will bring up the bishop selection, and there's this weird cultural thing, and I don't know if it's just our synod or what it is, but clergy seem to be distrustful of anybody who wants the bishop's office.
hmm.
Have you noticed that?
Well, yeah, I mean, um, yes, I have noticed that.
But
Uh,
here's the weird thing: in order to be bishop, we need people who want to be bishop. Right,
right.
right. It doesn't just, it doesn't just fall in people's laps, right?
Right,
Like in order to do that job, you have to want to be bishop.
right.
And I think that there's this weird, I want to say false humility that comes with people who are running, and who are saying, well, I'll take the job, um, if I'm voted in, and they kind of, I would like to see at least one person go, here are the gifts that I have. I feel called to this ministry. If you all confirm it, then God willing, it'll happen. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Instead of this, well, I don't really want the job, but I'll do it if I'm called. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I get the false humility part. Uh, uh, I have noticed that. I have noticed that, anybody who wants it, people are distrustful, or people who want it too much, or who they
Right.
think want it too much. Who knows really what people want, right?
Right.
But if they seem too eager for it, people might distrust that. I understand that. But I wonder, like, getting back to the first thing we were talking about, people campaigning. I wonder if the people who really do want it, like who really want to be bishop, um, and they're kind of extra nice a few months before the bishop's election. I wonder why those folks um, don't start 6 years before that and start developing relationships with clergy 6 years before the
Mhm.
bishop's elections are for 6 years, right? Like really developing relationships with clergy, and um, and not in a scheming way, but in a way that says, I want to be a bishop, so I have to know the clergy in my area, in my synod, and in order for a good uh in order for it to be a good synod relationship, I got to get to know the pastors. I got to get to know the pastors in my area,
You know what I would
um
liken that to is seminarians who need to really kind of take on the identity before they're called. Do you think that's a fair? Do you think that that's kind of a comparison? Like somebody who's like does the relational work, who's constantly trying to connect the synod, becoming a leader among leaders, and that's the way to campaign,
Yeah.
to do the work before being called. And I
Right.
don't
Right.
mean
It's
in a subversive way to those who are already in leadership, but just connecting in that way in order to step into the role of bishop smoothly.
mhm. Well, I think it's like maybe leadership, right?
Mhm.
Like to be a leader. So maybe that means being a dean, right? Maybe that means uh taking on roles, because there's always work for pastors to do in the synod. There's what do we call them, discipling, or yeah, discipling teams, right, that we supposedly have, I say supposedly because I think there's only a couple that are like really going right now,
Functioning right.
functioning, right. So so really taking on that kind of step forward, so that people do see you as leader, right. But I've been thinking about this a lot since all the drama that happened at our last uh, Synod assembly, and kind of coming back from that, going, okay, how much do we actually know? How much do pastors actually know other pastors in their own conferences? How much are we in each other's lives a little bit? And I know that I'm guilty of this. I know a couple pastors in my local area, and I meet with them, a little bit, but not very much. Uh, but to develop relationships with those pastors so that when things go down, we are already in relationship with each other, and we're not siloed off from one another. Because I think siloing is a big thing that happens in churches.
Indeed, there seems to be in our denomination almost a competitive thing where, like, our local churches, instead of partners in ministry, they're competition for the Lutherans in the area, right?
Mm,
Instead of, there's millions of people around us who don't know Jesus, and we are
mm,
trying to bring them into the kingdom of God. It's, oh, well, there's new Lutherans, and so they go to the local other churches, so that's who we're trying to that's who we're in competition with.
mm.
I think there's a
Yeah,
bit of that, and that's the siloing.
yeah, yeah, I could see that. I mean, uh, churches have a history, right? If a group of people are mad at one church, they don't like what's going on, they'll move to the church right down the road. And I've been
Yeah,
to, this is my second call, and both congregations have had that happen, you
right.
know. Uh, and so, um, so I could see how people feel like I could see how pastors would say, "Oh, this is feel that kind of competition edge, to it all."
Yeah.
Um, so we've talked about relationships, right? Like the next bishop that we want should we feel like should be like know the pastors in the area,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the synod, like be in relationship with them. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a key struggle, right? Or a key thing. We've also talked about the sense that somebody really wants it, not to be shy about them wanting it,
Mm-hmm.
but to really put forward their gifts. Uh, that's one of the things that I find kind of interesting about like the way we elect a bishop is like um, when bishops get up there and they say, "This is why you should elect me," they'll tell like a personal, heartfelt story and then try to connect that story with why they want to be bishop, right? And so they'll talk about their grandmother or their wife or their something, and
Dad
it'll
who
be
was a
this one
pastor.
story that like will connect with people, like politicians do in order to
Mm-hmm.
try to connect with people, and I guess I'm just a little more pragmatic, like it's great to connect with people, like which I want bishops to do, but also I want I want to know what do they really got that could be of service to the synod and the church, because the bishop role is not just ceremonial, right? They're not just going to worship services or traveling, or they're like doing real administrative work on behalf of the synod,
Yeah,
and there's real work to be done,
right.
and it's not just ceremonial. uh,
I want to hear from the podium at Synod Assembly from the candidates. Number one, that they actually believe this stuff, that they actually believe in Jesus, that they believe in prayer, that they have a solid theology. I
mhm,
want to hear that, because that's not a given.
mhm,
And then second, what I want to hear for them is what they believe their spiritual gifts are in order to be bishop.
right.
Like if somebody got up there and said, I'm not very good at administration, but I am good at connecting people. I'm good at doing all, and gives their gifts. And then would say something like, because I'm not good at administrating, I'm going to build a synod council and a synod office who are excellent at that to buttress my gifts.
Yeah,
That would just blow my mind.
right, right. Because it's not just about the bishop, right? It's about their staff. It's about the way they're able to delegate things,
Right.
right? Um, it seems to me that the next bishop we have, I would like to see, is a good delegator,
Mhm.
who's able to get stuff done, but can delegate and build up systems that can last, um, over the years, right?
Yeah, and with that systems, I would say build a cohesive vision for the ELCA in our synod.
Mhm,
I think of what the Episcopal Church did with Michael Curry and his love campaign on a nationwide level. And I thought, man, if every bishop did something like this for
mhm,
their synod, where we talked about, okay, we are going to be, you know, the synod that talks about grace, the synod that talks about love, whatever it is, you
mhm,
know, I think that would be so beneficial for the church as a whole in this area.
right.
So I have up here on my screen, what people put in a survey for the top 10 greatest needs in the synod. Let's see what we think about these. Number one, options for struggling congregations. That's the number one.
Mhm.
What do you think about that one?
I think I think I think as a mainline denomination, our churches are going to get smaller. I
Mhm.
don't think magically every Lutheran congregation is suddenly going to take on a missional narrative in their church. Um, and because of that, um, evangelism is not ingrained in the ELCA. It's not. Um, and so because of that, what's the next move for struggling congregations? What I've been thinking about as my church is getting a little smaller is, what is a mainline expression of church going to look like in 20 years in San Carlos? That's what I'm thinking about. You know, not even just Lutheran. What's a mainline progressive church going to look like here? Um, so I think it's an important question, and I don't know that the bishop's office is going to be helpful with that right now, because I don't think most people know what's going to happen. I think we're really great about diagnosing what has happened and why it's happening, but
Mhm.
I don't think we're really good at what's next. Um,
And
and
I think I have a different take on that, in that uh, we're going for broke in my congregation. And what I mean by that is we are focusing on mission, we are focusing on evangelism, we are focusing on trying to change the inbred Lutheran culture of anti-evangelism. And we're either going to, it's either going to work or we're going to die doing the work of the kingdom.
Yep. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't think that's the main culture of the ELCA.
Right, right. And
That's
I
my
mean,
only
it takes
point.
a culture change. It takes a culture change.
Right.
But with number one, I think everybody knows the options for struggling congregations. And it's just the struggling congregations don't like those options. Right? Which is
right. No, I agree with you. But also, you know, people don't want to be the ones to say we need to close or we need to combine with another church. They don't want to admit that kind of failure. But also, a lot of these congregations, a lot of folks in the congregations are older. And I'm sure you've heard stories. I know I've heard stories where people are just like, hey, listen, I don't really care what happens. Just as long as I can die first in this church.
right.
As long as you can be the one to do my funeral, whatevs. Which is such an interesting mindset to me, because some of these folks are the ones who founded the church, or at least are one generation after, and they were the ones building it.
The
And
pioneers of these churches are
right,
now just saying those things. Yep.
right, which is one, on the one hand, understandable, right, because they have done good work. On the other hand, it's like, if we could only have that kind of ingenuity again. But congregations are getting older and the society is becoming more secular, and so it's harder to get energy in those ways, right?
It takes a culture shift. It takes an absolute culture shift in order for that to happen.
Right.
And that is difficult. That's difficult to maintain. All right, number two
Right.
on this
Okay.
list, leadership skills.
I think leadership is absolutely important. I think that's a
100%.
given.
Number three, conflict management skills. These are the greatest needs of the Synod. Conflict management skills.
A lot of what a bishop does is helping resolve conflicts in congregations, right? Or having to remove pastors who do bad things. Yeah. Right.
Number four, well-qualified interims.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's
Five,
a lot of openings here.
Right. There's lots of openings in this. Five, vision for the future.
Yeah, that seems to go with number one, though, right?
Options for struggling. Yeah.
Right. It's like a vision for the future.
Oh, and we talked a little bit about this. Number six is the ability to communicate mission.
Right.
Like, I think that's something we talked about. Number seven is interesting. Spiritual renewal. Now, I am for spiritual renewal in congregations, for people being committed disciples, renewing their faith and trust in Jesus. I'm for that. I'm just not sure how that happens at a synod level, like above the individual congregation.
Well, that might be like you said, with Bishop Curry, right? The love campaign. Like, our spiritual renewal comes in the form of, we're going to be concentrating on grace or love or whatever. But I think you're right. I think it's the individual pastors and congregations too who find in their local context their giftings and use those for the mission of God in that local area.
Yeah. Support and encourage pastors and rostered ministers.
Yeah, I think that's good, but I also think, I wonder if that's the dean's job. Like, right. I wonder if it's the dean's job to be getting people together, in more than just meeting once a month or whatever. And that's not to take away from all the great work the deans are doing, because they're doing a bunch of stuff. you know, but maybe that's my job. Maybe it's, if I see the need for pastors to be getting together, maybe I should be the one doing it. You know what I mean?
So,
To
so I've done
support
that,
our
Josh.
conference things.
I've taken on that with the pastors in my area. Like I have two other churches in my just in direct area, and I've just decided I want to be mission partners with these people.
Mhm.
You know, I want to, so I have like we're in Concord, Good Shepherd in Concord, right? And there's St. Matthew's in Walnut Creek, and we have a huge food pantry here. We give away tens of thousands of pounds of food on a yearly basis. It takes up most of our buildings. We're just like, we are laser focused on feeding people.
Nice.
And St. Matthew's, who's is a much bigger church, and they got all these great ministries and stuff, they don't have room for a food pantry. And so what
Mhm.
they've done is said, we are going to collect food for your food pantry.
Nice.
And so they've
Yeah.
become a collection center for food, and they drop off truckloads on a monthly basis to us.
Wow.
And so I'm trying to get other churches to be involved in that ministry in various ways, because that's what we're really good at.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and but it's connecting with those pastors, you know, and us sending our kids over there for VBS and like that kind of stuff.
Nice. Very nice. I love that.
uh
I think that's a great idea.
Number 9, speak with boldness and clarity.
That seems like a leadership thing, you
Right.
know. Uh,
Tell me what you think about number 10. Not about only number 10, but that it's number 10.
okay.
A person of prayer and spiritual discipline.
I mean, I would hope that that's a given, right? Like, I hope that that's like the foundation that in which we as pastors and people of faith stand. Um, you know,
Agreed.
but every pastor is different. Like, you know, some that there's different models of being a pastor. And I recognize that. I don't think pastors should all be one way. So maybe it is necessary. Maybe it is necessary to name that, because um yeah, I okay.
Yeah,
You know,
I think it is necessary. I think we have to name those things as primary foundational things, because I have learned that they're not a given.
right. Right.
Just like, have you seen the Hillsong documentary?
Ooh, so good.
So, like, maybe because of our sinful natures, we just have to name things like, you can't sleep with your babysitter as a pastor. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we just have to name things. You know,
Or your parishioners.
or your parishioners for that
Or your
matter.
secretaries.
Exactly. Like,
I it feels like, Jeremy, like that is, I think we're in a world now. I would hope that we're in a world now where that's like, once you recognize the power imbalances, like that, you go, yep, like that's, you don't do that.
right, right.
um,
Um, there was one more part. How did your conference gathering go?
it was all right. I unfortunately, there was a lot of traffic going into our area, so we started late and we had to shuffle things around, and I actually had to leave. It was so like right as we chose names, like we're starting discerning names, I was like, guys, I got to get back to the kids, you know. So I had to leave early, and I don't know how long they went. I liked the process. I really liked the process in which we were discerning together what we thought the next bishop should be. I really appreciated that. Looking at what is the actual job of a bishop, what are the things that we need, you know, going through that list that you went through, you know, And then kind of hopefully basing the names based on that. So I'm really interested to see moving forward what's going to happen with the names who are brought forward, because the names we bring forward, they don't necessarily make it to the ballot because they could decide, oh, I don't want to do this, right?
Right. And we have an interesting process where just because there are names that are brought forward before Synod Assembly, doesn't mean that there won't be more names at Synod Assembly, because sometimes people's
Right.
names are put in on that first ballot, which is, I don't, if there's a name for it, but I don't remember the name.
I think it's called
So
like ecclesiastical ballot.
there you go. So any name can be put forward
Right.
at that point.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm interested. I'm really interested to see what happens, and I'm hoping that all of our congregations are able to send people to Synod Assembly. I'm really, pushing my congregation to send the people that we're allowed to send, so that we can truly discern as a church together who we think it should be. And I'm hoping and praying that we are deliberate, and that we discern together exactly what we need in a bishop, and that we truly talk to the candidates in an open and honest way. And I think there might be some time during the election process, in which there's like an open forum in which we could ask candidates questions, because I think that's where we get real clarity, is being able to, in open dialogue, you know, probe what those giftings truly are, right? Anybody can do a canned speech. Any pastor can do a canned speech, right? It's in the middle of things. Can they answer hard questions? Can they thoughtfully be put on the spot and move forward? Because how many times you go into a place, you're put on the spot as a bishop or as bishop staff, to like, hey, we got this issue, go. It's an important part of the job, right? For me, I think I want. Go ahead.
I wish there was some mechanism, like a podcast, in which we could have all of the candidates come onto and just talk to them.
Right.
Just talk to them to see what that's about.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe in 6 years there'll be enough people that listen to this that we can bring all the new.
I doubt it.
I know we're so infrequent in this. We're terrible podcasters, but I think it would be cool to bring on people, or to have them go anywhere, and not just canned speeches, but just sitting down and talking to them.
Right. I mean, I think it would be cool. I mean, I would say, like, hey, we should do this for the current bishop's election, but I don't know if that's interfering with an election or not. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I don't want to interfere with an election, right? Or the process of an election.
Right, because it might be. I don't know. If I were running for bishop, I'd go on podcast. I'd do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping that people who are running for bishop campaign. Right. Like, because I really want to get to know these people. I really want to get to know I don't want it to be superficial. I really just want to know. Right. And I don't want it to be canned speeches. I want to know what these people are made of. That's what I want to know. Yeah. Truly what they're made of. Because we've had a rough couple years here. And I feel like if we're going to have somebody for 6 years, we as a synod really have to get after it and figure out and discern, with the help of the Holy Spirit, who should be our bishop. So I feel like we've been going for about 45 minutes and we should wrap it up.
One last question.
Okay.
What would it take for you to be bishop? For you to like put your name in?
I don't think I would be a good bishop.
Yeah.
So I don't know that, like, I don't know that I would ever want to be bishop, honestly. I could see myself being on a synod staff at some point in time. I could see myself being like an assistant to the bishop. Not anytime soon. I don't want to, if you're running, don't put me on, I don't want to, don't ask me. Because I really want to get my kids through high school at this congregation, but I could see myself working on a synod staff at some point in time, but not, I just don't think I could be bishop. I don't think I have the giftings for it. Because I'm not really good. I don't feel like I'm good talking extemporaneously. I don't feel like, and I don't know that the administrative gifts that are necessary for bishop are giftings that I have. I would really have to develop the administrative abilities, I should say, to be bishop. I would think, because I think that's a growing edge for me, is kind of that administrative ability. So,
yeah.
So yeah,
I think I wouldn't even like consider it until all my kids are like out of college.
College even?
Yeah.
Well,
okay. Until I was much older, I think.
You're pretty damn old. I mean, you're you're not young anymore, homie.
Is 42 old?
You're getting up there. You're not young anymore. We don't hang out with the young pastors anymore, the 26-year-olds. Like, that's we don't do we. That's not how we roll. So,
all right. Well, I'm excited to see how this Synod Assembly plays out. This is coming up in September. I'm sure we'll let's do a podcast after Synod Assembly, and we'll talk about how it went.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
All right.
All right, brother.
Good to talk to you.
Always pleasure. Peace.
Peace.